welcome to my podcast. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. On today's episode, we're going to be talking with Elizabeth Misson, the director of the Cleveland branch of the American Ice Theater. She also has a professional career outside of skating and is a mother. So sit back, grab a mug of your favorite beverage, and welcome to this episode of On the Ice with Bernice. Well, I'm just so excited because today on the Ice with Bernice, we have with us Elizabeth Misson. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. And she is the director of the American Ice Theater Cleveland branch. And
correct.
She also does so many other things, and I'm so very excited for her to tell us about all of that. So, Elizabeth, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here. So let's just jump right in. Tell us more about what you currently do in the skating world.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I am the director of American Ice Theater Cleveland Satellite. It's a newer position for me. I got involved with American Ice Theater back in 2019, so pre-pandemic, actually just before pandemic, and took their Master Choreography Techinques class. And it's almost like a college course, if you will. And you do all these different assignments and you learn a lot of things. At the end, you get a certification. And just kind of like started my journey with AIT there, and it continued on to where it is today because I decided that it just wasn't enough. I needed more, right? So that is my my role with American Ice Theater. So essentially what we do here in Cleveland is we host 4 seasonal seminars for skaters in the area. And it's just really bringing the concepts and the choreography and the learnings that I learned through AIT and spreading them with the community for everyone to learn about here in Cleveland, as well as we have a professional company that choreographs stuff together and performs. So we kind of just got that off the ground at the end of last season. And so I've been involved with AIT now for almost 3 years. This is coming up on my first full year of finishing a satellite and becoming an official satellite at AIT. So it's been really exciting. So that's like the newest addition to what I've been doing with skating for the past.
Well, I have a question. If it's
yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'm interrupting you, but
no, you're great.
You said you got into the American Ice Theater by taking some master's class. Is that right?
That's correct.
Can you tell me more about that? How did you end up doing that?
So around about somewhere around 2018, 2019, I was at a bit of a crossroads with where do I fit in? What is my place in skating? Am I enjoying what I'm doing? I direct a Learn to Skate program that I've been doing for a very long time, and we produce ice shows every year, and it's fun and it's wonderful. But at the time, it was getting to be a bit like it was a lot of work, and it was feeling very stressful. And I asked my husband, I said, should I keep doing this? And he said, you love skating. Like, think about this really hard before you give it up, before you walk away from this. And I gave it some thought. And the more I thought about it, I said, you know what? I don't need to step away. What I need to do is I need to say yes to the right things, right? I need to take on the projects that bring me joy. And kind of stumbled backwards into AIT because I was really interested in just growing my knowledge base of choreography, and did some searching around and thought to myself, I wonder if somebody else is already doing this. I wonder if these opportunities are provided somewhere. And that's how I found AIT. And yeah, so it's called Master Choreography Techinques. And it's a wonderful experience. You get paired up with about maybe 6 other people in a class, and you attend monthly meetings over Skype. We were actually doing the virtual meetings before the pandemic, which is really funny. And you have text that you have to read, you have reports that you do, and you're studying just really the basis of dance and how dance and contemporary dance especially translates onto the ice. So all the different types of movement, how to incorporate those movements, how to make educated decisions when you're putting together choreography to make sure that you're incorporating as much 3D body movement as you can and things like that. And, you record different choreography pieces as your assignments. And then at the end, You do like one big final, kind of like a final project, if you will, like if you were in a college class, and submit that, and you get great feedback from the group. And it was just so wonderful, and I learned so much, and that's really kind of what started on this journey.
Oh wow. Now, would you recommend, like, who can go to this choreography master class? And can it be anyone, or who would
Yeah,
you
so
recommend this for?
it's really for anybody who really wants to take a deep dive into like choreography and really expanding their skill base in terms of really understanding the very very basics of the movement and where it derives from dance. I think that sometimes as choreographers it can be really easy just to copy paste things from the ice, but when you can really kind of drill back into like the dance movement and figure out how to translate that onto the ice, that's really kind of where those really creative things come from. So, I mean, really anyone who's really interested in becoming better at choreographing, and wants to have those tools in their tool belt. I mean, the notes that I have from the class was like 3 years ago, but I still go back to them very regularly and reference them.
Oh, that's awesome. And people can just find this on the American Ice Theater.
Yeah, it's under, yeah, on so americanicetheater.org, and it's under the education tab. So they do like a fall semester class and a spring semester class. And they have so many people applying in the last couple of years that they were actually kind of doing like two classes simultaneously. So I know that the spots fill up really quickly.
Oh, well, that's awesome. So going back to you said that you were hitting a spot in your skating where you were wondering whether or not you should continue, and and that was when you were doing the learn to skate classes, and you were I think you said the director. Now, going through that process of trying to figure out where you fit into the skating world, would you have any advice or anything that you learned in your journey that might help other people?
Yeah. So really the biggest thing for me was really just taking a step back. It can really be, you can get to that point where you feel overwhelmed by maybe the responsibilities that you've taken on, or, maybe like you don't have a place for what you want to do. I think a lot of times, as skaters, as coaches, depending on where our competitive skating journey ended, a lot of us feel like we hit a crossroads and we need to take, this path or that path, or there's no path. And I think sometimes just finding that there are multiple paths and that there's no right or wrong way to do things, that you have to find what path works for you. And understanding that the path that makes you happy is the right path, that there's really no wrong path, that whatever path leads your blades to the ice and brings you joy is the right path, regardless of what other people might think is the right thing you should be doing with your skating. Your skating is yours and your journey is yours. And that's just really something that I've kind of found through the process, is that when I took that step back and I really realized that this is not something I want to step away from. I don't want it to stress me out. How can I continue to do it, but under my terms?
Now, I don't know. I've been watching recently that Marie Kondo show where she's talking about finding joy. And to me, that sounds a lot like that, where, it's different than going through your house and finding t-shirts that are from the 80s that you should probably throw away because they're not bringing you joy anymore. But sounds to me to be the same concept.
It is a very much the same concept. And it's not that I necessarily threw anything away. I still do all the things that I was doing before. I just changed my approach, and how I was doing it. So skating has always been for me my hobby. I've never looked at skating as a job. I have a full-time job and I do all that, to earn an income and do all those wonderful things with life. Then that allows me the ability to look at skating as just what I do for fun. And I really try to kind of teach that to other people as well, that, even if you don't choose skating as your full-time career, that doesn't mean that your journey with skating has to stop.
Oh,
I had
that's a good one.
yeah, I had a conversation with a friend once, and we were talking about, when you try to explain to people like what your role in skating is, and a lot of times, well, are you an adult skater? And I said, well, here's the thing, adult skaters deserve their own like category of respect, because I have no idea what it's like to step on the ice for the first time as an adult. I imagine it's terrifying. It's probably like me learning how to swim as an adult, right? Like, oh my gosh, I can fall, it's scary. So for people who pick this sport up as an adult and continue on, like, to me that's like a whole amazing category all of its own. For people like us who, I can't remember a time where I didn't skate. My memory only goes back to when I was probably 3 years old, and I already knew how to skate at that point. So I don't have that, that feeling of, oh, I remember what it was like when I learned. I just say, instead of just calling myself an adult skater, I'm a skater who became an adult. I just never stopped. It took many different roads, but never really stopped.
I feel like we should find a different word. Like it would be nice if we had a word to call it, something else. Like adult skaters and I don't know. I'm not that smart. I couldn't. I'm not good with words. Maybe someone out there has already, figured out a good word, because
A good word.
I do think it's very different. I can only imagine. I mean, even now, because I'm a lot different than when I was younger, body wise. Sometimes it is scary to step on the ice now at my older age, and to look all the way down at the ice and realize how far I can fall. So I can kind of relate to, skaters who are starting out as adults. And it is very different when you start out when you're 3 or, younger. So, yeah. But tell us more about, I love this idea of skating can be your hobby and you're completely valid as a figure skater. So what else do you do? What's your full-time job?
Yeah, so my full-time job is I actually work in the Philanthropy Institute for a hospital system called Cleveland Clinic. And it's one of the largest hospital systems in the world. I think we're usually kind of like ranked number 2 right behind Mayo Clinic.
Wow.
And just fortunate to have it here in our backyard in Cleveland. And it's really kind of a part of my whole life story, how I ended up there. But essentially, I have a chronic illness that I've had since I was 16 years old called ulcerative colitis. And it's something I've dealt with for most of my life. And if it wasn't for the fine team over at Cleveland Clinic that essentially saved my life when I was about 22 years old, I wouldn't be here today. And so when the opportunity came up, I'm a journalist by trade. I used to work in local TV news for a number of years. And when I switched over to the healthcare industry, it was really about like, how can I give back, to this organization that essentially is, I'm grateful for what they've done for me. And it just kind of ended up that way that I ended up there. So I work on a multitude of materials for philanthropy communications and that sort of thing, using my journalism background. And so that's my day job that I get to do during the day, which is also very fulfilling and very fun. And then my side hustle, as we so call it, is all my fun on the ice.
Yeah. And you also are a mother, right?
I am, yes. I have 2 little boys and a stepson.
Oh my goodness. Now that's just, do you have time to do it all?
It all really comes down to time management. Everything is very planned out. I've got a schedule and it's written down. And honestly, if it wasn't for my husband, I don't think I could keep it all straight. So
Oh, wow. Well, I'm glad you are, because it sound those are all such fascinating things to be working on, and all different spheres of everything. So tell us more about, in this philanthropy and in the journalism, have you learned anything over in those realms that has helped you in the world of skating?
I think so. It's kind of a two-way street. There's a lot of lessons that I've learned in one place that have translated to the other, and then maybe back again in the other direction. But I think really probably seeing is looking at, from like the work world, from my communications background, it's really about relationship building, right? It's about forging those relationships with people and getting people to understand and to trust, what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And I think I've been able to kind of take those skills and at least use them in how I interact with, other skating professionals, how I interact as a skating director with our clientele at the rink. It's been a nice little trade-off. And two, just like I've had a little bit of like marketing skills thrown into that. So it comes in handy when we're marketing, American Ice Theater or my Learn to Skate program or something. So I kind of have the tools and the skills to use for that. But to be honest, I feel like most of the translation has gone the other way around. So and I tell this to, all the kids who are just like graduating high school and, going into college, and they say, look, if you can get on the ice and go to center ice by yourself, waiting for that music to start, and perform a routine for judges, for an audience that you worked really hard on by yourself, that is literally the scariest moment on earth. When
I
you were
agree.
standing right at center ice and
Yes.
it's like, okay, it's go time. If you can do that, you can do anything. A job interview, no problem. Public speaking, presentation, no problem. Like I've been in the working world for 20 years now. I have yet to encounter a situation in my professional career that has been more scary than standing at center ice waiting for my music to start.
I think I would agree with you. Oh goodness. And I guess that's a good thing to, tell skate. I love how you're telling the skaters who are graduating, because, some of them, that might be the end of their skating journey, and, that's completely fine. But they've learned so many skills that will help them in the rest of life, that are important to learn and will make their life a lot easier.
Yes, absolutely. And I was literally just at two graduation parties over the weekend of young ladies who are skaters, that I've watched grow since they were like toddlers. And I wrote the same thing in both of their graduation cards. I said, don't stop skating.
Mm,
Because I think a lot of times we have that mentality that when we're done with school or traditional school, that our skating journey is also done. And my older son plays tennis, and when I tell people that he plays tennis, a lot of times people say, "Oh, that's so wonderful because tennis is a lifelong sport and you can play it at any age." And I always kind of stop and say, well, no, skating is too.
right.
Skating can absolutely be a lifelong sport. We're all going to reach a point where our body isn't going to want to be hurled in the air to try double axles or triples anymore.
Mm.
But that's not the only path that skating offers. So that's really what I'm trying to like send the message to a lot of the kids that I work with, and adults as well.
And that's the message I'm trying to send as well. That I think you also have to get to a point where you can admit that skating is more than jumping and spinning. That, there is so much more to it. There's artistry and expression, and there are things that even 80-year-olds like I can do on the ice without breaking a hip. And it you can be in the skating world without having a triple axel, and that's okay.
Absolutely. There's literally like everyone has the right to be on the ice.
Right.
If it brings you joy. To me, a clean sheet of ice is a blank canvas.
Mm.
And when I see a clean sheet of ice, I just want to get on it and create,
Mhm.
even if my feet never leave the ice.
I like that. That's quotable right there. I'll have to write that down. So, what would you say to someone who doesn't feel like they are welcome on the ice? We're both saying that the ice is a welcoming place and that it is a lifelong sport. We both believe that. But what about people who don't feel welcome?
One of the coolest things I've really discovered through the AIT community, and the nice, the wonderfulness that we have of this thing called the internet these days, right? That we didn't have, 20, 30 years ago, is that if you're in your current situation and for whatever reason, you've made to feel like you don't belong, you've made to feel like you're not the right age, or you're not the right ability level, or you're not the right body type, or whatever someone's told you, about whatever reason is that you're not right for this sport. They're wrong, first of all.
Hey.
And and second of all, like, you need to find your people, like you need to find your community. And that's been like one of the really cool things about American Ice Theater, is that like if you have the capability to travel a little bit, there's a couple of different like global events that they host. There's like so for like kind of like the more advanced or like professional level skater choreographer, there's the Contemporary Skating Festival, which is held in Boston each year, which I've gone to twice, which is amazing. And it's like everybody gets together from all over the country and just meets and creates for like an entire 4-day
Oh
span.
wow. And what time
There's
of year is that? Is that in
it
the
is
summer or?
it's in the summer, yeah. So that is like the second weekend in June. And it's really amazing because you meet so many different people from so many different walks of life, different ages, different stages. And we're all there because we have something in common, and it's amazing to be together. And so that's, like I said, for like, mostly like it's professionals, it's choreographers, it's I think everyone has to be 17 and up to go to this one. But then for the younger kids, there's this wonderful opportunity that's actually happening, I think, next weekend. It's in mid to late July in the Chicago area, in Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin, which is just about 20 minutes north of Chicago, where it's essentially like a summer camp. And it's little itty bitty kids all the way through adults. And it's the same concept. It's like, come find your community, learn about that mind body connection to skating, and just get together and create. And it's amazing. So they do that for all age levels. And then on the flip side of that, in September in Austin, Texas, they host the Adult Skate Away, which is adults of any ability level, chill, come, skate, find your community. And it's like, it's 50% about the skating, but really like the other 50% is just about like finding your community and finding those people that you can connect with. And you build lifelong relationships. And it's amazing the things that you learn, and the different people who, you may have never met before in your life, but they share a similar story, and that they love to skate and they love to create. But somewhere along the line, I think most of us can probably say there was a time where we felt like we didn't belong, or someone said something that made us feel like we didn't belong. And it's that finding that sense of belonging, which has really been so fulfilling.
That is just awesome. I hope maybe some of the skaters that I know, or even myself, might be able to make it out to one of those one day, because they just sound like a very
You would love it.
hiding place. Sounds wonderful.
It is.
Going to a different topic, would you be comfortable sharing a time where you feel like you've really succeeded and a time where you failed? Or I've had one guest who said she didn't like to use the word failing, and she said learning experience. And I
Yes.
really like that.
Yes. It's funny. I thought about that in preparation for this interview. And I thought to myself, if I just could only had to find one example of when I felt like I failed, there's so many. There's so many more examples of when I felt like I had failed. But that was actually a really good analogy. It was a lot about learning. And actually, my story of feeling like I failed and story of feeling like I succeed are actually intertwined.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so I would say probably from about the age of 14, 15, up until about 17. I felt like I failed at skating over and over again. I had a really, really difficult time pulling together my mental strength when it came to competitions. I would work so hard in practice, and I would be so ready. And then I would step on that ice and my legs would lock up, and it was a human Zamboni impression, if you know what I mean. Just, some of the worst performances of my entire skating. And I remember thinking to myself every time I stepped off the ice, what are my parents are sacrificing so much for me to be able to do this. I came from a family that didn't have a ton of resources. Skating was expensive for us, but my parents somehow made it work, right? And I just felt like, my God, I must have just let them down. I must have let them down again. They're thinking, why am I spending all this money if my kid's just going to go out there and just wipe up the ice like this and not skate the way they do in practice? And they never thought that, of course, but I felt like, they would be justified if they did. And so I think I told you that at 16, I was diagnosed with this condition. It's essentially an inflammatory bowel disease. And one of the treatments that they use for it when you have a flare up is a medication called prednisone, which is a steroid. And it's a wonderful drug because it, gets things under control, but it's awful for an athlete because it causes all sorts of side effects. Something that I probably didn't fully understand at 17 years old. And I was competing in my first ever regionals in senior ladies. And I was like, yes, I am here. I am ready to go. Skating my short program is, it was all right. I get on the practice ice for the long program. And unbeknownst to me, one of the major side effects of tapering off of a prednisone is that you get panic attacks, like really, really bad panic attacks, just like unrealistic anxiety and fear and heart palpitations. And 17 years old, I'd never experienced a panic attack before. And wouldn't you know, it decides to show up on my practice ice.
Oh, no.
Yes, I was at the Ann Arbor Ice Cube. I'll never forget it. And I step on the ice and I can't even do a single axel. I can't do anything. I am paralyzed with fear. My coach is like looking at me like, what is wrong with you? Like, like I was like, I didn't know how to skate, and I couldn't articulate why I was feeling the way I did. And here, I'm trying to tell myself, my gosh, is this just competition jitters? But it was something much more than that.
Right.
And I remember my sister was there, and we got off the ice, and she was like, what is going on? I said, I don't know. I don't know, but I can't skate. I can't move. I can't do anything. I was just like paralyzed with fear, and I didn't know why. And so this was in the morning, and the event was later on that evening. And somewhere in between that morning practice and the time I got ready to compete, I just told myself, enough is enough. You have control over the situation. No one is asking you to go out and do anything that you can't do. You love to do this. Go out and love to do it. Turn off your brain and let your muscle memory take over. And somehow in that moment, because it was such an extreme circumstance, that it wasn't just competition jitters and I'm nervous and, oh, my legs don't feel good. It was something very, very, very wrong. That like I just had enough. I had enough, and I was able to go out and skate my long program. It probably wasn't the best skate I ever had, but it was like good. It was what I would expect. It was what I was doing in practice. Somehow I could do my jumps again. Don't know where it came from. And then from that point forward, I never had those competition jitters ever again. They never came back.
Oh, wow. Now that takes some mental strength. Wow. Whew.
It was a lot. And it served me well from that point forward, because there's been other times in my life where those panic attacks from my condition, from the medication, have come back, and I know how to deal with them now. There's been scary situations that I've had to deal with, in life and work, and I do a better job at dealing with them because of it.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that. My goodness. Yeah, and I guess like going back to what we were talking about before, really getting out on that ice by yourself, and amid, you might have something personal going on in your life or some medical thing, but you're still having to skate and really have, making yourself go through that is really going to help you in other things in life. And,
absolutely.
There are other times you have to go do scary things, and you might not, feel ready to do it, but it's the time and you got to go do it. So you just have to, pull up your britches and go for it.
Yep, you put on your big girl pants and you take care of business.
Well, wow. And I love that, that's intertwined, that, you could have, you failed at the beginning, but you brought it back around.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's awesome.
Thanks.
So you said when in your story that your sister was on the ice. So did you grow up in a skating family? Like, tell me more about that.
So it's kind of funny. No, so actually we're the first generation of our family to skate. My mom was a dancer, and initially I have an older sister who's 3 years older than me. I also have an older brother who's 2 years older than me, and a younger brother who's 7 years younger than me. So big family. And my mom was a dancer. She had my sister and I in dance, and dance was okay. Dance was fine. And then one day, there was an ad in the paper for come learn to skate. And we had a rink that was like a couple blocks from my parents' house where we grew up. And she took my sister to learn to skate lessons. And I was not old enough to start yet. You were supposed to be 4 years old before you're allowed to start lessons. And I don't remember it because I was 3, but legend has it that I would stand in the door and cry uncontrollably and disrupt my sister's lesson. Because I wanted to be on the ice, and the instructor finally just said, just put some skates on and just get her out there so we don't have to listen to her cry, I think, anymore.
Oh, that's
and kind wonderful. The rest was kind of history. So yeah, the two of us have been skating ever since that point. At one point I had my older brother skated. He stopped right about when he got to high school, but we're still both very involved in the sport. We've actually been directing the Learn to Skate program that we direct for the city of Brooklyn, Ohio since 2000. So this is year 22 for us doing that, which is pretty awesome.
Oh, that's wonderful. And do any of your kids skate too, or?
No, so my niece
Tennis
and
and
nephew
all of that.
skate. Yeah, my kids have been on the ice, but they're really kind of more involved in their sports. One's like full into tennis, and the other one's into baseball. And it's kind of nice to not have to be a skating parent.
I understand because sometimes, if I can say this, skating parents can be crazy.
Yeah, I think you probably get that in any sport. And it's funny that, being exposed to that, like as a coach and as a skater, it's given me a lot of lessons of what not to do with my own kids'
Mhm,
sports, like, in terms of just being hands off and letting their coaches handle it. Cause I'm certainly not an expert in those sports, so I don't pretend to be.
mhm. Yeah. And I guess sometimes it's hard to tell parents that because parents want the best for their kids.
And
So,
that's usually what it is. It's really walking that fine line between making sure everyone's voices are heard and
mm,
making sure that everyone's on the same page and doing what's best for the kid.
all right. Well, what's next for you? What's coming up? Are you going to this global event in Austin, Texas with the American Ice Theater, or what's up for you?
Yeah, so I can't make it to the global event in Austin, unfortunately. I have so many different commitments coming up between work and skating that I had to be wise about where I'm using my time off. But I was just recently at the one in Boston, which was amazing. A lot of what's going on next year, it's really just wearing like three main hats in skating. It's the American Ice Theater, satellite responsibilities in Cleveland, where we've got seminars coming up. I'm working on scheduling our summer seminar for August and then our fall one for sometime in October, as well as getting our professional company back together, perhaps growing that a little bit and getting some time on the ice with them. So I'm excited about getting that underway. Getting like this, the whole skating season started. It's a matter of like everything starts new again in the fall. I work with a theater on ice team on the east side of Cleveland, so we're just in the very beginning stages of that and developing ideas for next year, and then my other group as well. So it's just really fun to like kind of start with that blank canvas of the season and just kind of see where the creativity takes us. But yeah, it's just no matter what I'm doing and what role I'm in, it's just really about trying to lead by example, and show skaters that there's so much that you can do with the sport really at any age, and that there's all these different opportunities that are available to you. You just have to go out and find them and embrace them.
That is such good advice, and I hope there's someone listening who will take that up and go start, just doing some Google searches, because
Absolutely.
out there now. If when you get your professional company up and running and stuff, can we go look on YouTube to see some of their performances and?
Yes. So actually, because so there was, in addition to Cleveland, there was, I think, like four of us, different cities who were like kind of like trial satellite locations last season. As we're becoming full members of American Ice Theater, they're actually going to be creating different Facebook kind of like groups for each satellite, which they'll be posting all the videos and things like that. So if you follow pretty much anything that American Ice Theater has on Instagram or Facebook, you can find the links to those. So it'll be exciting when that gets up and running.
Well, good. Well, I'll be keeping my eye out for that because I'd love to see some of the stuff you guys create, and it's going to be great. My last question for you is, who do you know that I should interview next?
Oh boy, honestly, the best person I can think of is my personal skating and like life mentor. Um, his name is Franklin Singley,
All right.
and Franklin is a dance coach, choreographer, and just like all around like nicest human on earth that you will ever meet. He's active in the adult skating community. He's active in diversity on ice. He was a former performer for Disney on Ice and took part in the opening and closing ceremonies for the Olympic Games back in the day. But an amazing skater, amazing choreography, but like literally like the best human on earth. And like we just share so much commonality and how much we love being on the ice and how much we love sharing that love of skating with other people. So I couldn't think of a better person than Frank.
Well, after we finish this interview, I'll reach out to get his contact information. But
Absolutely.
thank you so much, Elizabeth, for
Oh,
joining me
thank you,
today.
Bernice.
I'm just so glad I got to talk to you and learn more about your life and your skating journey and the American Ice Theater Cleveland branch. And I'll be keeping my eye out on that Instagram page for all the videos and just I wish you the best.
Thank you. You too. It was wonderful to talk with you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of On the Ice with Bernice. On today's episode, we talked with Elizabeth Misson about how skating is a lifelong sport and how we learn lifelong lessons from the sport of skating. Would you do me a favor? Would you like, comment, and subscribe to my podcast? And if you're feeling really generous, would you share an episode of my podcast on Instagram or Facebook? This really helps podcasts like me get going. This episode was researched and produced by Anna Blankenship and hosted by me, Bernice. Most importantly, remember, everyone is welcome on the ice.